Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today is a very special day for me. I've spoken to Julie numerous times on Clubhouse, and then we have talked offline even. We have actually interviewed even on Back to Basics even before. But today's a little special because you know what? There were some few technical difficulties on Julie's side and our side, but we made this happen again today, like part two. And it seems like today's the day for her for sure. And today we picked the special day. So let's talk to Julie. Julie, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Girish, thank you so much for having me again. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome.
And yes, isn't it interesting how things work out?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again. So right now we are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and even on Clubhouse. If you guys are on Clubhouse, please join us also there so we can interact with Julie later today, right after this interview is done. So, Julie, before we get into the details of Stay on Course, which is the title of the interview today, what does Back to Basic mean to you?
To me, it reminds me of when we didn't have cell phones. Getting back to the time when life was a little bit simpler. That's what I think about with Back to Basics. Back to the time where we had more of that one-on-one interaction with each other, where we cherished the times at the table, especially with family and friends, and we
Mm.
just got to spend time together that we don't really do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't. We don't. Thank you. Thank you again for explaining that because it seems like we do need to go down to the basics of your root of where we started from. And technology is kind of taking over the world, but how do you step back and look as to where you grow up and grew up in back in time, I guess. So thank you again, Julie, for being here on Back to Basics. So today's title, we're talking about Stay on Course. And today is a special day is because Julie, you have about to be launching your podcast in a couple of days, which is over the weekend. That's one. Second, we're going to talk about your book also. So before we get into all that, tell me how did this whole thing process started? Do you think that the book started first, meaning the storyline, or the title came first? Which one came first for you?
Well, I often tell people that I was an accidental author. And I'm an accidental author because my father, when he found out that he was going to be leaving Earth, in a sense, he found out he was dying of lung cancer. He decided that it was absolutely time for him to write his book and that I was absolutely the one that was going to shepherd it to the end. There was no other choice. There was no other person. It was me. It was me. And so 4 months before he passed, I got an email that said, Ennio's book. And Ennio's book was about 100 pages of 20-point font of a lot of interesting stories that him and his nurse had put on paper, basically, in the year before he passed. And so that was definitely an interesting moment in time for me when I had to sort of figure out, well, what is this book called? What is this book about? Because I wanted it to be more than just his story. I wanted to be able to have a connection point into the book so that I could help promote it and talk about it as well. And so my father used to say to me, Julie, if the world falls down on your shoulders, brush it off and keep going your way. Stay on
Mm.
course. Stay on course.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually seen that video numerous times, and it's very very touching, Julie, of how you have presented your dad in the honor of that. So thank you again for that. Is this book more enjoyable for you, or is this more emotional for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Emotional or enjoyable? I think the book was a healing process for me. Writing the book was a healing process, and having the book allows me to keep my father's legacy alive. Like the longer the book is, we talk about the book and we talk about the stories, he sort of stays alive to me. And
Mm,
I don't want to ever sort of forget that.
mm,
And the thing that I recognize and the thing that kind of keeps me going is that, when we lose somebody, we don't really lose them if we keep them in our heart
Hmm.
and if we live the legacy out in a sense. And so, though my father's gone, I still don't feel like he's gone because my sister and I and our children are living out the legacy that he had left behind. And the interesting thing is, this is the kicker here is that my father prepared me for his dying. He actually prepared me. We had conversations about it. He basically said to me, "Look, I'm leaving it all to you in a sense, the legacy piece, not the money piece, because I'm still waiting for that at one day, but that's not the point. It's he was leaving me the piece of whatever work he had to do here on earth was now being left to me, meaning
Hmm.
I'm the one that's supposed to keep the family together. It was my job to do that. And it's
Hmm.
my job to sort of like make sure everyone's okay. That's what he said. Make sure everyone's okay, that you keep in touch with everybody, make sure that you keep the family alive. Like he literally prepared me. And when it was time, he said, "Okay, now it's time. Now I'm passing the torch to you." He literally said this to me. "I'm passing the torch to you. You're in charge now." And that to me was interesting because I knew my father was excited to get to heaven, to
Hmm.
get to go to heaven, because he had already experienced a moment where he had died
Hmm.
and he got to experience heaven. And so he was actually looking forward to going back. And that's very rare because most people are afraid to die. They're upset about dying, but not my father, because he felt that his life was done. Like he had done what he was here to do. And he was able to say, "You know what? I did this. I've done that. And now I can go in peace."
Yeah, absolutely. Julie, thank you again for explaining that. Can you explain to everyone that what did your father do and what restaurant we're talking about, and so then we know kind of the history of what this whole thing is all about, if you don't mind?
Sure, sure. And my father was a chef and he had a very interesting career. So he started out his career in Italy and then he, went over to work in Switzerland on the Orient Express and he went to England. He worked on the Queen Elizabeth. And then he came to America and he worked at the Waldorf-Astoria. He worked at the CBS building, but really where his a lot of the stories are from the Resorts International at the Capriccio Hotel in 1980 to 1984. That was when he really stepped into that fun time where he was with Frank Sinatra, Liberace, Pavarotti, all those guys. The Rat Pack was there, and he was the man who cooked tableside for all of them. And he was a maitre d', and so that was definitely something that the book focuses on. It's a great, great piece.
Thank you for that. Now, do you did your father actually write some journals of this whole entire thing? This is how it became a book, or
Yes.
did he tell you stories? Can you explain the steps on that, if you don't mind?
I absolutely will. So part of this was that he kept all of the newspaper clippings when he was in any newspaper, anybody wrote anything about him, he kept them in these binders. So
Hmm.
he'd been journaling a lot of this. He had a lot of pictures, and I did record him telling us a lot of stories. But what was the key piece was that when he was diagnosed and he had a nurse come to the house, somehow they decided that she was going to pen or type his stories. So this woman was from Brazil. My dad's from Italy. Neither of them spoke good English. And so what ends up happening is my dad's telling her the stories, she's writing them down. And that's how I got a lot of the stories in a form of a book. Although, it was in 20-point font and it was like 100 pages of 20-point font text. So you don't know I don't even know how many pages that ends up being in the book, but I did have a lot of work to do once I got that because I had to do a lot of fact checking. I had to do a lot of, moving things around and trying to make sense of his stories.
Yeah, thank you again, Julie. So, I want everyone to be aware that today is a very, very special day for Julie. The one thing is obviously you will be releasing your podcast over the weekend, and whoever's on Clubhouse, there is a link on top. You can just go to that page and take a look at the link for the podcast, which is on, I think, on Apple and other audio platforms. Is that right, Julie?
Yes, it
Yes.
is on Apple, and I think it's on just about every platform that a podcast is available. Thanks to Julie Loken, who is also on Clubhouse right now. So I want to thank her for that. And if there is a very special thing going on this weekend, I am offering free Kindle copies of my book. So if you're interested in receiving a free copy of the Stay on Course book, just this weekend only, you'll be able to get a free version. So if you would like a free version, go to my website, to the podcast page, fill in the form, and I will send you a link to the book later on today.
Yeah. So what is the website name again? That's going to be julieriga.com.
It's julieriga.com, and it's under the podcast page specifically where you can learn about the podcast. There's a link to the podcast. You can also sign up to get the free copy of the book. And if you're interested in being a guest, that is where you would put your information, because right now I'm looking for guests to be on the Stay on Course podcast. And what I'm looking for is experts in whatever field to tell us how you stay on course. What are your ingredients to success on how you stay on course?
Yeah, absolutely. And whoever is online right now and who's watching us, the website is also viewable over there, so you can just go there and be a guest, or even get a Kindle book from her. And it's a special day. It's only for today, if that's correct, right? Am I right, Julie?
Yes, it'll be actually today and tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 6-month anniversary of my father's passing. So I wanted to celebrate his life and also honor him by doing this to this
Yeah,
year.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Julia, for that. Um, now this whole process, it was kind of emotional, yes, but it was also happiness, right? But today, do you feel a little accomplished? Because it seems like this is more of a, the last time I spoke with you on Back to Basics, and today it looks like today is more of a reboot of Julie. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel accomplished in a sense. I've been working so hard to do and get all of these pieces together. And you know, Girish, better than anyone, how hard it is to get these episodes out and edited, and making them engaging enough for people to want to listen to them. And so yeah, I do feel accomplished. I feel like I'm just beginning though the journey. And I'm thinking about all of your process as well. I know you have a lot of shows in advance that you do. So trying to get it all together, trying to make it work is definitely something that I'm going to be working on and continue to work on. But at least getting to this place, at least I'm here and excited for whatever's next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want everyone to know that, yes, the visual that we're seeing right now, which is definitely live on all the four platforms right now, and it will be on that platform, but we will be releasing the audio clip or audio episode of this on March 16th. And hopefully you'll listen to it again, or you can just spread the word that this is Stay on Course on March 16th on Back to Basics. So, Julie, before we leave today, okay, it seems like we have talked numerous times and we have known each other for the longest time. Do you have any last words to all the viewers and the people on Clubhouse also, and how your journey was on Back to Basics also at the same time? Go ahead, Julie.
I mean, yeah, thank you, Garish. I really enjoyed being on your show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and learn from you, especially. But I think what I want people to know, and what my father wanted people to know, is that life is hard, and it's okay, and have fun with it. Even though it's hard, you got to roll with the punches, you got to get up when you get knocked down. He used to say, 9 times down, 10 times up, and it's this idea that though life is hard, you're going to get through it and stay on course. Don't give up with the dream that you have in your heart. You're here for a purpose. You are here for a specific mission. And I think that was something that I learned from my dad specifically, is that, you know, we are here to accomplish something. And I believe that the more we can help and serve others, the more our life has meaning. And that also speaks to the legacy that we leave. And I think that is one thing that I celebrate today, is that my father left a legacy of good. and that I can even have that conversation. Like, this man lived his life with purpose, and it was so strong that now his purpose still stands after he's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Julie, thank you again for coming on Back to Basics and supporting me on this small podcast that I have. And it's been you're on season 2, and we've been talking since season 1, so we have been knowing each other for the longest time. So thank you again for coming here and supporting me.
Thank you, Garish, and thank you for supporting me, and I'm so happy that we got this time together today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, and God bless. So, guys, we spoke with Julie today, and we talked about the basics of stay on course and the writing. She's never written a book, but there's one thing that we do say is this: follow your passion and follow the mission of what your life is all about. As usual, as always, there's a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Julie would like this quote of the day is: keep writing. It's all terrible in the beginning, but eventually it'll get there, right? So that is the quote of the day. So, guys, as usual, as always, please comment as much as you can on all my episodes, because it makes me stronger day by day by your comments. And as usual, as always, we will see each other next week on Back to Basics on all the episodes that I have been releasing. Take care, God bless, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
Because so many people fail in their New Year's resolutions or things that they are tackling because they have heard over and over again it's going to take 21 days. So they feel like, hey, when I make it to 21 days, I'm there. Well, it actually is the bare minimum. And many times it's 3 times more is likely, or even more. So no wonder why so many people fail, right? They haven't been given the whole story. They don't know the whole story. And when you have an expectation and then it isn't met, that's where unhappiness, failure, all the issues.